Hey everybody, today is September 22nd, 2023, and we're reading a proverb a day. If you are watching any of these, the proverb for yesterday, Proverbs 21, I did read it and I was recording it when I read it, but the recording didn't save. So just know that I apologize if you were following along waiting for it. I did read it, recording didn't save, and I will re-record it hopefully this weekend. There were a couple of thoughts that I shared that I'd like to get out there and share. But anyway, so for today, September 22nd, 2023, we are going to read Proverbs 22. And we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully, tomorrow, for tomorrow's proverb, or maybe on Sunday, I'm going to try to record on my laptop so that I can share my screen and display the scripture that we're reading, so that anybody that doesn't have a Bible or doesn't have their Bible app or whatever, for whatever reason, it would just be easy to follow along, if I can display it. So I'm going to try to do that, which is actually what I tried to do yesterday, but the app I was using crashed and didn't save anything. So anyways, Proverbs 22. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. Rich and poor have this in common: the Lord is the master of all of them. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor and life. In the paths of the wicked lie thorns and snares, but he who guards his soul strays far from them. Train a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they will not turn from it. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. He who sows wickedness reaps trouble, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. A generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. Drive out the mocker, and out goes strife. Quarrels and insults are ended. He who loves a pure heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king for his friend. The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the unfaithful. The sluggard says, "There is a lion outside," or "I will be murdered in the streets." The mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is under the Lord's wrath will fall into it. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from him. He who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and he who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty. And then it goes into the separate section that says sayings of the wise. So it says, pay attention and listen to the sayings of the wise. Apply your heart to what I teach, for it is pleasing when you keep them in your heart and have all of them ready on your lips, so that your trust may be in the Lord. I teach you today, even you. Have I not written 30 sayings for you, sayings of counsel and knowledge, teaching you true and reliable words, so that you can give sound answers to him who sent you? Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case and will plunder those who plunder them. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared. Do not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. Do not move on an ancient boundary stone set up by your forefathers. So let me repeat that one. Sorry, that was Proverbs 22:28. Do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your forefathers. Do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. He will not serve before obscure men. So that's the end of Proverbs 22. So we'll get into reading some of the commentary. And feel free, as always, to share any of your thoughts on any of these in the comment section. So Proverbs 22. So the first verse, there's not commentary on it, but I was just going to say something about it. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. So I think that that could be misinterpreted by society in thinking that that we're supposed to try to gain people's approval and be popular and be liked and try to define esteemed in that way. But that's not what this scripture means. What this scripture is alluding to is that having a good name and keeping a good name is really about your character and your word. So do you have a good name? Do you stay out of trouble? Do you follow the Lord? Do you do what's right? Do you keep your word? Are you honest, truthful? Can you be trusted? Are you honorable? All of those things are the things that give you a good name and reputation, so to speak. And so those are the things that the scripture is referring to when it talks about being esteemed for those things, not being esteemed because you are popular because of what's going on in culture or society, or because you have, you're trying to post certain things to get likes on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that scripture. The next commentary is verse 4, which says, humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor in life. So the commentary says, this is a general observation that would have been especially applicable to an obedient Israelite living in Solomon's God-fearing kingdom. Nevertheless, some have been martyrs at a young age, and some have given away all their wealth for the sake of God's kingdom. The book of Proverbs describes life the way it should be. It does not dwell on the exceptions. The next one is, so I guess humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor in life. So I guess what that's saying is that, there have been circumstances where people have exhibited humility and fear of the Lord, and maybe it didn't bring the wealth or honor or life that the way we would think of it or interpret it. And I'm just saying because the commentary says that it doesn't dwell on the exceptions, but describes life the way it should be. But I think that can also be interpreted because wealth, honor, and life in some ways can be different for each person. What wealth means to one person might be different for another person. Anyways, probably maybe that's one to meditate on and see if any different revelation comes from that one. The next one is 22:6. It says, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. This is one that I used to pray over the kids all the time, and I still pray over the grandbabies. So, in the way that they should go is literally according to his way. It says according to the child, in parentheses, way. It is natural to want to bring up all of our children alike or train them the same way. This verse implies that parents should discern the individuality and special strengths that God has given each one. While we should not condone or excuse self-will, each child has natural inclinations that parents can develop by taking to teachers, other parents, and grandparents we can better discern and develop the individual capabilities of each child. Train a child up in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. So that's interesting, and I think that's one that I have to like meditate on, because I do pray that over my grandkids, and I pray that my kids raise their children in the way that they should go, so that when they're old, they will not turn from it or depart from it. But in my mind, that scripture had always meant train a child in the way that he should go, meaning like following God. And I didn't ever think about this scripture in the context of this commentary about raising them up in their individuality, which I agree with, but I never thought about that scripture this way. I'd always just thought this scripture pertained to raising them up in the way they should go, which is in the way of the Lord. So I do think I want to meditate on that one some. So, all right, the next one is 22:7. And 22:7 reads, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." And this is definitely one I've heard before when it comes to money management. The rich ruling over the poor, and the borrower being servant to the lender. So the commentary says, does this mean we should never borrow? No. It warns us never to take a loan without carefully examining our ability to repay it. A loan we can handle is enabling. A loan we can't handle is enslaving. So the borrower must realize that until the loan is repaid, he or she is servant to the individual or institution that made it. So I think it's a good point to say that a loan can be enabling if we can repay it, but it's also enslaving if you can't. I think that we get enslaved to debt. Society, we live beyond our means, and I know that I personally could definitely manage my money better when it comes to this area. So the next one is 22:12. The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the unfaithful. So this says knowledge refers to those who have knowledge, those who live right and speak the truth. It takes discipline, determination, and hard work to live God's way, but God protects and rewards those who make the commitment to follow him. So I'm going to read that one again. So this is 22:12. The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the unfaithful. 22:13 says, the sluggard says there is a lion outside, or I will be murdered in the streets. This proverb refers to an excuse a lazy person might use to avoid doing work. The excuse sounds silly to us, but that's often how our excuses sound to others. Don't rationalize laziness. Take your responsibilities seriously and get to work. That is actually kind of funny. All right, 22:15. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from him. This is one we used raising the kids too. We definitely believe we called it the rod of correction, which was the love rod. And it was a paddle, and we paddled our kids when they needed to be paddled. I definitely did that. So this commentary says young children often do foolish and dangerous things simply because they don't understand the consequences. Wisdom and common sense are not transferred by just being a good example. The wisdom a child learns must be taught consciously. The rod of discipline stands for all forms of discipline or training. Just as God trains and corrects us to make us better, so parents must discipline their children to make them learn the difference between right and wrong. To see how God corrects us, you could also read some additional scripture. But I do believe the rod in this sense is a paddle. And people aren't going to agree with me. People don't agree with paddling their kids, but I definitely am a proponent of the love rod, paddling your kids, and it worked for me. I definitely think that you have to be cautious about how you do it, and to not do it in anger, but do it out of love and correction and discipline, but not out of anger and frustration. So there are rules around giving your child a paddle, a love rod. Okay, so the next is 22 and 23.